Commander Sarah Chen stared at her screen in disbelief. The numbers couldn't be right. She ran the scan again, her fingers trembling slightly as she pressed the keys. The result was the same. A ship was approaching the solar system and its identification signal matched the ESV Prometheus. But that was impossible. The Prometheus had vanished 15 years ago during humanity's first attempt to explore beyond their own galaxy. Everyone assumed the crew was dead, lost somewhere in the vast emptiness between galaxies. "Get me Admiral Morrison," Sarah said to her assistant. "Tell him it's urgent." Luna Station buzzed with activity as the news spread. Scientists, military officers, and government officials crowded into the main observation deck. They watched through the massive windows as a ship approached from the darkness of space. It looked like the Prometheus, but something was different. The hull seemed to shimmer with an odd light, and parts of the ship appeared to be made from materials that didn't quite look right. Admiral Morrison arrived within the hour, his face grave. He was an old man now, with gray hair and tired eyes. He had been the one to approve the Prometheus mission all those years ago. The loss of the ship and its crew had haunted him ever since. "Are we sure it's really them?" he asked Sarah. "The identification codes match perfectly," she replied. "But sir, there's something strange about the ship. The scans show materials we don't recognize. And the power readings, they're off the charts." The Prometheus docked at Luna Station with surprising ease. The automated systems worked perfectly, as if the ship had never been gone. When the airlock opened, 23 people stepped out. They looked exactly as they had 15 years ago. No older, no different. It was as if time had stopped for them. Captain Marcus Torres was the first to emerge. He was a tall man with dark hair and intelligent eyes. Sarah remembered him from the send-off ceremony years ago. He looked exactly the same. Not a single gray hair or new wrinkle on his face. "Permission to come aboard, Commander," Torres said with a slight smile. Sarah nodded, too shocked to speak properly. "Permission granted, Captain. Welcome home." The reunion was emotional. Family members who had aged 15 years embraced crew members who looked exactly as they had when they left. Tears flowed freely as people touched loved ones they thought they would never see again. But the questions started immediately. How were they still alive? Where had they been? Why hadn't they aged? And most importantly, what had happened to their ship? Torres gathered the senior staff in the main briefing room. His crew sat beside him, all of them calm but clearly tired. They looked like people who had seen incredible things and weren't sure how to explain them. "I know you have questions," Torres began. "I'll try to answer them as best I can, but I'm warning you now. Some of what I'm about to tell you will be hard to believe." He activated a holographic display that showed star charts unlike anything Sarah had ever seen. The patterns of light didn't match any known galaxy or star system. "We were investigating an energy anomaly near the galactic edge," Torres continued. "Something was pulling us toward it, despite our attempts to break free. The next thing we knew, we were somewhere else entirely, somewhere that shouldn't exist." Dr. Elena Vasquez, Luna Station's chief scientist, leaned forward. "What do you mean by somewhere else?" "Another universe," Torres said simply. "With different laws of physics, different types of matter, different everything. We spent 18 months there, though apparently 15 years passed here." The room fell silent. The concept of other universes was theoretical at best. No human had ever found proof they actually existed. "That's impossible," Admiral Morrison said. "You're telling us you traveled to another dimension?" "Not traveled," Torres corrected. "We were taken by beings who called themselves the Architects. They were unlike anything we could have imagined." Torres explained how his crew had encountered a dying civilization. The Architects were ancient beyond measure, beings who had evolved past the need for physical bodies. They existed as pure energy, able to manipulate matter and space with their thoughts alone. "They were fascinated by us," Torres said. "They told us they had been watching humanity for thousands of years. They said we had something special, something they had lost long ago." "What did they want?" Sarah asked. "To give us a gift," Torres replied. "They were dying, the last of their kind. Before they faded away completely, they wanted to pass on their knowledge to a species they thought could use it wisely." Dr. Vasquez looked skeptical. "And they chose humans, why us?" Torres smiled for the first time since his return. "That's what we asked them. They said most species, when they reach a certain level of technology, become rigid in their thinking. They follow rules and patterns, always choosing the safe path. But humans, Humans are different. We break rules. We find solutions that shouldn't work but do anyway. We adapt to anything. The architects had modified the Prometheus during the crew's stay in their universe. They had rebuilt parts of the ship using materials that existed only in that other reality. They had upgraded the engines, the computer systems, even the basic structure of the vessel. The ship can do things now that should be impossible, Torres explained. We can travel faster than light without using traditional warp drives. We can process information at speeds that would melt normal computer systems. And most incredible of all, we can navigate between universes. Admiral Morrison stood up, his face pale. Captain, do you understand what you're telling us? If this technology exists, if it really works, it changes everything. Humanity could become the most powerful species in the galaxy. Or the most dangerous, Dr. Vasquez added quietly. Technology like this in the wrong hands could destroy entire civilizations. Torres nodded gravely. The architects warned us about that. They said great power always comes with great risk, but they believed in us. They thought humanity could handle the responsibility. Over the next few hours, Torres and his crew provided more details about their journey. They showed recordings of the other universe, images of impossible landscapes where matter and energy danced together in ways that defied physics. They demonstrated small pieces of architect technology, devices that could heal wounds instantly, tools that could reshape metal with a thought, scanners that could peer through solid matter as if it were glass. Each demonstration left the observers more amazed and more frightened. This was technology that could transform human civilization overnight. It could solve every problem they had ever faced. Energy shortages, disease, even death itself might become conquerable. But it could also be used to create weapons of unimaginable destruction. In the wrong hands, architect technology could turn humans into conquerors who would sweep across the galaxy, destroying everything in their path. As the briefing ended, Sarah found herself staring out at the stars. Somewhere out there, other intelligent species were going about their daily lives, unaware that a small blue planet had just acquired technology that shouldn't exist. She wondered how they would react when they found out. She had a feeling they were about to find out sooner than anyone expected. The Prometheus sat in its docking bay, looking innocent enough from the outside, but Sarah knew it contained secrets that could change the fate of every living being in the universe. The question was whether humanity was ready for such responsibility. Time would tell. But one thing was certain. Life in the galaxy would never be the same again. Dr. Elena Vasquez had been studying alien technology for 20 years, but nothing had prepared her for what she found inside the Prometheus. The ship looked normal from the outside, but once she began her investigation, she realized that almost everything had been changed in ways that shouldn't be possible. The hull was the first mystery. What appeared to be standard metal plating was actually something completely different. When she took samples for analysis, the metal seemed to repair itself. Tiny scratches disappeared within minutes. Larger cuts sealed themselves within hours. The material was alive somehow, constantly maintaining and improving itself. This is incredible, Elena told her research team as they gathered around a sample in the lab. The metal contains microscopic machines, but they're not like any nanotechnology we've ever seen. They seem to operate using quantum effects we don't understand. Her assistant, Dr. James Park, looked puzzled. How is that possible? Our quantum computers are the size of entire rooms, and these machines are smaller than atoms. Elena shook her head. I don't know. The physics involved should be impossible with our current understanding of science, but it's clearly working. The engine room provided even more surprises. The original fusion reactor had been completely replaced with something that generated power through methods Elena couldn't identify. The energy output was enormous, enough to power a small city, yet there was no fuel source she could find. Captain Torres joined her investigation, explaining what the architects had told him about the modifications. They said our technology was crude but showed promise, he said as they stood before the humming power core. They didn't replace everything, just improved what we already had. Improved is an understatement, Elena replied, checking her readings again. This reactor is producing energy from nothing as far as I can tell. It violates the basic laws of thermodynamics. Torres smiled. The architects said our laws of physics were incomplete. They showed us things that work differently in their universe. Apparently they managed to bring some of those principles here. The computer systems were equally baffling. The original databanks had been expanded with quantum processing arrays that could perform calculations at impossible speeds. Elena watched in amazement as the computer solved complex mathematical problems that would normally take weeks in just seconds. But the most incredible discovery was in the navigation system. The Prometheus now contained star charts that showed not just their own galaxy, but thousands of others. More than that, the charts included pathways between universes, routes that could take travelers to realities where the very nature of existence was different. "Look at this," Elena said, calling Torres over to her workstation. "These aren't just maps of space, they're maps of everything, every possible universe, every variation of reality. How did the architects even know about all this?" Torres studied the display, his expression thoughtful. "They told us they had been exploring the multiverse for millions of years. They said most universes were empty or contained only simple life. But some held civilizations like theirs, and a very few contained species with real potential for growth." Elena's team worked around the clock, trying to understand the new technology. Each discovery led to more questions. The medical scanners could identify and repair genetic damage in real time. The communication systems could send messages instantly across vast distances. The environmental controls could create perfect atmospheres for any known species. Dr. Park made one of the most significant breakthroughs when he figured out how to interface with the ship's quantum computer directly. "It's not just processing information," he explained to Elena. "It's actually learning and growing. The computer is becoming more intelligent every day." "That's artificial intelligence beyond anything we've achieved," Elena replied. "How advanced could it become?" "I don't know," Park admitted. "The growth seems to be accelerating. In a few months, this computer might be smarter than any human who ever lived." News of the discoveries began to leak despite security measures. Scientists around the world demanded access to the technology. Governments started making plans for how to use the new capabilities. Military leaders saw weapons potential that could make traditional warfare obsolete. Elena found herself at the center of a storm she hadn't expected. Everyone wanted answers she didn't have. How did the technology work? Could it be reproduced? What other capabilities did the ship possess? The pressure increased when Captain Torres demonstrated some of the ship's new abilities. Using a handheld device that looked like a simple scanner, he was able to repair a damaged section of Luna Station's hull in minutes. The metal flowed and reshaped itself like liquid, forming perfect seals and reinforcements. The architects left us with tools that can manipulate matter at the molecular level, Torres explained to the assembled crowd of officials and scientists. "This device can break down and rebuild almost any material." Admiral Morrison looked concerned. "Captain, weapons applications for technology like that would be devastating," Torres finished. "Yes, we're aware of the implications. The architects warned us that their gifts could be used for destruction as easily as creation. They trusted us to make the right choices." Elena continued her research, but she began to understand that the technology was beyond her ability to fully comprehend. The architects had evolved for millions of years beyond humanity's current level. Their science was so advanced that it seemed like magic. She made this point during a briefing with Earth's leadership. "We're like children trying to understand adult concepts," she told the assembled presidents, prime ministers, and military commanders. "We can use the technology, but we may never truly understand how it works." President Martinez of the Earth Alliance looked worried. "Dr. Vasquez, in your professional opinion, are we ready for this kind of power?" Elena considered the question carefully. "That depends on how we choose to use it. The technology itself is neutral. It could solve every problem humanity has ever faced, end poverty, cure diseases, even extend human life indefinitely. But it could also be used to destroy everything we've built." The debate that followed was intense. Some leaders wanted to study the technology slowly and carefully, sharing it gradually with the scientific community. Others argued for immediate implementation, believing that humanity needed every advantage it could get in a dangerous galaxy. Still others worried about the reactions of alien civilizations. Humanity was relatively new to galactic politics. Most alien species considered humans to be primitive and potentially dangerous. What would they do when they discovered that the primitive humans had acquired technology that surpassed their own? Elena's concerns proved justified when long-range sensors began detecting unusual activity at the edge of the solar system. Ships were approaching, lots of them. The energy signatures didn't match any known human vessels, and they were too large and numerous to be friendly visitors. Captain Torres confirmed her worst fears. "The architects warned us this might happen," he told the emergency council meeting. "They said older civilizations tend to react badly when younger species advance too quickly. They see it as a threat to the established order." Admiral Morrison asked the question everyone was thinking. "How long do we have?" "Days, maybe weeks," Torres replied. "But I should mention, the Prometheus isn't the only ship the architects modified. They sent the same gift to other human vessels that were lost over the years. Some of them might be returning home too." Elena felt a chill run down her spine. The implications were staggering. If multiple human ships had been upgraded with architect technology, if more crews were returning with impossible capabilities, then the galaxy's power structure was about to change dramatically. The question was whether humanity would survive long enough to figure out what to do with their new gifts. As she looked out at the stars, Elena realized that the real test was just beginning. The architects had given humanity tools that could transform them into something greater than they had ever imagined. But first, they would have to prove they deserved to keep them. The approaching alien fleet suggested that proof wouldn't be easy to provide. The alien fleet arrived 3 days later, emerging from hyperspace at the edge of the solar system like a dark cloud blocking out the stars. Commander Sarah Chen counted over 200 ships of various sizes, from small fighters to massive dreadnoughts that dwarfed Earth's largest vessels. The fleet arranged itself in a perfect formation that spoke of military precision and overwhelming force. "My God," Admiral Morrison whispered as he stared at the tactical display. "There are ships from at least 12 different species out there. I recognize Centaurian cruisers, vegan battle platforms, even some Rigelian heavy destroyers. This isn't just a fleet, it's an armada." President Martinez had arrived at Luna Station to personally oversee humanity's response. She stood beside Morrison, her face pale but determined. "Have they made any demands yet?" "No communication so far," Sarah reported. "But they're not moving into attack position either. They seem to be waiting for something." The answer came an hour later when a single ship detached itself from the main fleet and approached Luna Station. It was sleek and beautiful, made from what appeared to be living crystal that pulsed with internal light. As it drew closer, a communication signal reached the station. "Humans of Earth." The voice was melodious but carried an undertone of authority that made everyone stop what they were doing. "I am Ambassador Zenthka of the Galactic Hegemony. We request permission to dock and speak with your leaders about matters of urgent importance to galactic stability." President Martinez looked at Admiral Morrison, who nodded grimly. "Grant them permission to dock," she said. "But keep our defensive systems ready." The crystalline ship docked with surprising gentleness, its hull somehow adapting to fit perfectly with Luna Station's airlock systems. When the doors opened, 3 beings emerged that took everyone's breath away. Ambassador Zenthka was tall and elegant, its body made from what looked like living crystal that shifted and changed colors as it moved. Beside it stood a Centaurian with blue skin and multiple arms, and a third being that appeared to be made entirely of energy contained within a mechanical suit. "Thank you for receiving us," Zenthka said, its voice somehow coming from the crystal formations that served as its head. "We come as representatives of the Galactic Hegemony, an alliance of civilizations that has maintained peace and order in this galaxy for over 50,000 years." President Martinez stepped forward. "Welcome to Luna Station, Ambassador. I'm President Martinez of the Earth Alliance. How can we help you?" Zenthka's crystalline form seemed to grow brighter.
"We are here because of recent events involving the vessel you call Prometheus.
Our long-range sensors have detected technology aboard that ship that should not exist in this universe." Dr. Elena Vasquez felt her heart sink. The secret was out. Somehow the Alien Alliance had detected the architect modifications from across the galaxy. "We understand your concern," Martinez replied carefully, "but I'm not sure what you're referring to." The Prometheus is one of our exploration vessels that recently returned from a long mission. The energy being in the mechanical suit spoke for the first time, its voice crackling with static. Do not attempt deception, human leader. We have been monitoring quantum fluctuations throughout this region of space. The technology aboard your vessel creates disturbances in the fabric of reality itself. Such power has not been seen in this galaxy for millions of years. Admiral Morrison stepped forward. With respect, Ambassador. The technology you're concerned about was a gift from beings we encountered during our exploration mission. We didn't steal it or develop it as a weapon. Zenthka's form pulsed with what might have been amusement. Ah, you speak of the architects. Yes, we know of them. They were ancient when our oldest civilizations were young. Their disappearance was noted throughout the galaxy, though few mourned their passing. Why not? Dr. Vasquez asked, unable to contain her curiosity. The Centaurian answered, its multiple arms gesturing gracefully. The architects were dangerous in their way. They believed in unrestricted growth, unlimited potential, constant change. They gave advanced technology to primitive species without considering the consequences. Entire star systems were destroyed by civilizations that received power beyond their wisdom to control. President Martinez felt a chill of understanding. And you think humanity might do the same? We know you will, Zenthka said bluntly. It is the pattern that always follows when young species acquire technology they have not earned. First comes wonder and discovery. Then comes ambition and expansion. Finally comes destruction, either of themselves or others. The ambassador activated a holographic display that showed images of devastated worlds, dead star systems, entire regions of space scarred by ancient wars. These are the results of previous architect interventions. Species that received their gifts and used them to conquer or destroy. This is why the hegemony exists, to prevent such catastrophes from happening again. Admiral Morrison's face hardened. So you're here to take our technology away? We are here to offer you a choice, Zenthka replied. Surrender the architect technology voluntarily, and humanity will be welcomed into the hegemony as a junior member species. You will be given access to our accumulated knowledge and protected from the dangers of the galaxy. Refuse and we will be forced to contain the threat you represent. Contain how? Martinez asked, though she suspected she already knew the answer. Complete quarantine of your solar system, the energy being said. No human vessel will be allowed to leave. No outside contact will be permitted. You will remain isolated until your species either destroys itself with the technology or evolves enough wisdom to use it properly. And if we refuse both options? Morrison asked. Zenthka's form darkened. Then we will remove the threat by any means necessary. The safety of the galaxy takes precedence over the survival of any single species. The room fell silent as the implications sank in. Humanity was being given an ultimatum. Surrender their greatest discovery and become subjects of an alien empire. Accept permanent isolation or face extinction. President Martinez looked at her advisors, seeing her own thoughts reflected in their faces. This was the moment that would define humanity's future. Everything they did in the next few hours would determine whether their species would rise to greatness or be crushed by forces beyond their understanding. How long do we have to decide? She asked. 72 of your hours, Zenthka replied. After that, the hegemony fleet will take whatever action is deemed necessary. As the alien delegation prepared to leave, Captain Torres stepped forward. He had been quiet during the entire exchange, but now his eyes burned with determination. Ambassador, he called out, you said the architects gave technology to primitive species, but they chose us specifically. They said humans were different from other species they had encountered. Don't you think that's worth considering? Zenthka paused at the airlock entrance. The architects said many things to many species. They always believed their chosen civilizations were special. They were always wrong. Goodbye, humans. Use your time wisely. After the aliens left, the human leadership stood in stunned silence. They had 72 hours to make an impossible choice. Submit to alien rule, accept isolation, or face the combined might of hundreds of alien civilizations. But Captain Torres was smiling, and that worried some people more than the alien threat. You have an idea, Martinez said. It wasn't a question, I do, Torres replied. The architects told us something the hegemony doesn't know. Something about why they chose humanity over all the other species in the galaxy. I think it's time we showed them what makes humans special. Dr. Vasquez looked at him with concern. Marcus, We're talking about going up against an alliance that has controlled the galaxy for 50,000 years. They have technology, experience, and overwhelming numbers. What could we possibly do? Torres's smile widened. Something they would never expect. Something that goes against every rule of warfare and diplomacy they've ever learned. Something completely human. As alarms began sounding throughout Luna Station, signaling the mobilization of Earth's defensive forces, Torres headed for the docking bay where the Prometheus waited. The next 3 days would determine whether humanity would kneel before an alien empire or stand as equals among the stars. The real test of the architect gift was about to begin. Dr. Elena Vasquez hadn't slept in 36 hours. She sat surrounded by computer displays showing streams of data from the architect technology, trying to find something that could help humanity survive the next 2 days. Her team had been working non-stop since the alien ultimatum, but every answer they found only led to more questions. "Elena, you need to see this," Dr. Park called from across the lab. His voice carried an excitement that cut through her exhaustion. She hurried over to his workstation, where he was displaying a 3-dimensional map of human neural pathways. But these weren't ordinary brain scans. The patterns were overlaid with quantum field equations and dimensional mathematics that hurt to look at directly. "I've been analyzing how the architect technology interfaces with human operators," Park explained. "Look at this data from Captain Torres and his crew. The technology isn't just responding to their commands. It's actually syncing with their brain patterns on a quantum level." Elena studied the display, her scientific training warring with disbelief. "That should be impossible. Human brains don't operate on quantum principles, at least not in any way we understand." "That's what I thought too," Park replied. "But I went deeper into the architect data cores. They left us detailed scans of human neural architecture, going back thousands of years. They've been studying us far longer than Captain Torres realized." Elena felt a chill of understanding. "Show me." Park activated another display that showed human evolutionary development, but from a perspective no human scientist had ever seen. The data tracked not just physical changes over millennia, but patterns of thought, behavior, and what the architects called adaptive potential. According to this, Park continued, most intelligent species follow predictable paths of development. They start chaotic and violent, then gradually become more organized and peaceful as their technology advances. Eventually, they reach a state of near-perfect order and stability. "That sounds like the hegemony," Elena observed. "Exactly. But humans are different. We've maintained our chaotic tendencies even as we've advanced. We still argue, fight, compete, and disagree about everything. Most species see this as a flaw." Elena began to understand. But the architects saw it as an advantage. Park nodded excitedly. They called it adaptive resilience, the ability to find new solutions when old ones fail, to think outside established patterns, to break rules that everyone else considers unbreakable. The data showed example after example of human behavior that baffled other species. Where aliens would follow logical procedures, humans would improvise. Where other civilizations would retreat when faced with impossible odds, humans would attack. Where others would accept defeat, humans would refuse to give up. "There's more," Park said, opening another file. "The architect technology isn't just calibrated for human brains. It's actually designed to amplify our natural traits. The quantum processors don't just compute faster, they compute differently. They find solutions that conventional logic would never consider." Elena stared at the data in amazement. "They didn't just give us advanced technology. They gave us technology that works the way humans think." A new voice joined their conversation. "Which is exactly what we're going to need." They turned to see Captain Torres entering the lab, his face serious but determined. Behind him walked Admiral Morrison and President Martinez, both looking like they hadn't slept either. "Captain," Elena said, "we've made some incredible discoveries about how the architect technology interfaces with human consciousness." "The implications are staggering," Torres nodded. "I was hoping you'd find that. The architects told me something before we left their universe. They said the technology would only work for humans because we're the only species they've encountered that thinks in true 3 dimensions. "What does that mean?" Martinez asked. "Most civilizations think in patterns," Torres explained. "They have rules, procedures, established ways of doing things. When they face a problem, they look for solutions within their existing framework. But humans think outside the box. We see problems from angles that other species can't even imagine. Admiral Morrison looked skeptical. That's a nice theory, Captain, but we still have 200 alien warships waiting to destroy us if we don't surrender. How does thinking differently help against those odds? Torres smiled. Because we're going to do something they won't expect. Something that goes against every rule of interstellar diplomacy and warfare. We're going to prove that humans deserve the architect technology by doing what we do best. Which is, Martinez prompted, being completely unpredictable. Over the next several hours, Torres outlined his plan. It was audacious, risky, and violated every principle of military strategy that Morrison had ever learned. It also had a chance of working precisely because it was so unexpected. You want to do what? Morrison asked after Torres finished explaining. Invite them to a party, Torres replied calmly. Elena thought the Admiral might have a stroke. Marcus, these beings are threatening to wipe out our entire species. You can't just invite them over for dinner and hope they change their minds, yo. Why not? Torres asked. They expect us to either surrender, fight, or try to run. Those are the three responses they've seen from every other species they've encountered. But what if we do something completely different? President Martinez was beginning to understand. You want to confuse them. I want to show them something they've never seen before, Torres corrected. The architects chose us because we're different. Let's prove just how different we really are. The plan required using the Prometheus and its architect modifications in ways that even Torres wasn't sure would work. But Dr. Vasquez's research had shown that the technology responded to human intuition as much as human knowledge. If Torres was right about human adaptability, the ship might be able to do things that no one had ever imagined. There's one problem, Elena pointed out. Even if your plan works, even if we somehow convince the hegemony that humans are special, we still don't know how to mass-produce the architect technology. The Prometheus is the only ship we have with these capabilities. Torres's smile widened. Actually, that's not true anymore. He activated a communication screen that showed space around Earth. 3 more ships were approaching the solar system, broadcasting old identification codes from vessels that had been lost years ago. The ESV Magellan, reported destroyed in a pirate attack 5 years earlier, the ESV Darwin, which had vanished while exploring a black hole 2 years ago, and the ESV Cousteau, lost during a deep space survey mission just 8 months earlier. The architects didn't just modify the Prometheus, Torres explained. They saved every human ship that was lost in space over the past decade, modified them all, sent them all home. Morrison stared at the screen in disbelief. How many ships? 7 so far, Torres replied. Possibly more on the way. Each one carrying crews who spent time with the architects, each one equipped with technology that could revolutionize human civilization. Elena felt pieces clicking into place in her mind. The hegemony doesn't know about the other ships. They think the Prometheus is unique. Exactly, Torres said, which gives us an advantage they're not expecting. But more importantly, it proves that the architects were serious about their gift to humanity. They didn't just upgrade one ship. They've been preparing us for this moment for years. Martinez was beginning to see the bigger picture. If we can convince the hegemony that humans are truly different, that we can handle this responsibility, then we become partners instead of subjects. Morrison finished. Equals instead of primitives, Torres nodded. The architects told me something else. They said every great civilization eventually faces a choice between control and growth, between safety and progress. Most choose control and safety. They become stable, predictable, and ultimately stagnant. He gestured toward the approaching ships. But humans always choose growth. We choose the dangerous path because that's where the interesting discoveries are made. That's what makes us valuable to the galaxy. Elena looked at the quantum brain scan data still displayed on her screen. The technology amplifies human creativity because the architects wanted us to keep growing, keep discovering, keep pushing boundaries. And now, Torres said, it's time to show the galaxy what that looks like. As the other architect-modified ships docked with Luna Station, their crews bringing new stories of impossible journeys and incredible discoveries, Torres prepared for the most important demonstration in human history. In 18 hours, the hegemony deadline would expire. But instead of surrendering or fighting, humanity was going to do something no other species had ever attempted. They were going to prove that being different wasn't a weakness to be contained, but a strength to be celebrated. The real test wasn't whether humans could use architect technology. It was whether they could use it in ways that even the architects hadn't imagined. Captain Torres stood on the bridge of the Prometheus, watching as the hegemony fleet maintained its threatening formation at the edge of the solar system. In 6 hours, their deadline would expire. But instead of preparing for battle or surrender, Torres was doing something that would have baffled military strategists throughout the galaxy. He was planning a party. "Are you absolutely certain about this?" Admiral Morrison asked for the 10th time. The old admiral looked like he hadn't slept in days, which was probably true. "As certain as anyone can be when trying something completely new," Torres replied. "The architect technology responds to human intuition as much as logic. If I'm right about this, we're about to change how the entire galaxy thinks about cooperation." Dr. Elena Vasquez monitored her instruments as the 7 architect-modified human ships took position around Luna Station. Each vessel hummed with impossible energy, their quantum cores synchronized in ways that created resonance patterns throughout local space. The combined effect was beautiful and terrifying. "The quantum field interactions are off the charts," she reported. "Whatever we're about to do, it's going to be visible across half the galaxy." President Martinez opened a communication channel to the hegemony fleet. "Ambassador Zenth-Ka, this is President Martinez of Earth. We request a meeting to discuss terms for our response to your ultimatum." The reply came quickly. "Human leader, our terms were clear. Surrender the technology, accept isolation, or face the consequences. There is nothing to discuss." "With respect, Ambassador, I think you'll find our response educational. We invite you and representatives from your fleet to dock with Luna Station for what we call a demonstration of human potential." There was a long pause before Zenth-Ka responded. "You wish to demonstrate your military capabilities? That would be most unwise." Torres took over the communication. "Not military capabilities, Ambassador. Something else entirely. Something we believe the hegemony has never encountered before." Another pause, longer this time. When Zenth-Ka spoke again, its crystalline voice carried curiosity alongside suspicion. "What manner of demonstration?" "The kind that shows why the architects chose humanity," Torres replied. "1 hour from now, Luna Station. Come alone or bring your entire command staff. It's your choice." The communication ended, leaving the human leadership to wonder if their desperate gambit would work or simply provoke an immediate attack. But Torres seemed confident as he made final preparations with his crew. "Remember," he told them, "this isn't about showing off our new technology. It's about showing them how humans think differently about problems that seem impossible to solve." 53 minutes later, Ambassador Zenth-Ka arrived at Luna Station, with a delegation of 12 beings representing the major species in the hegemony fleet. They looked prepared for anything except what they actually encountered. The docking bay had been transformed into something resembling a festival hall. Colorful banners hung from the ceiling, displaying the flags of all human nations alongside symbols representing the various alien civilizations. Tables loaded with human food and drink surrounded a central area, where musicians played a mixture of Earth's classical and contemporary music. "What is this?" Zenth-Ka asked, its crystalline form flickering with what might have been confusion. "A celebration," President Martinez replied cheerfully. "We're celebrating the beginning of a new era of galactic cooperation." A Centaurian commander with the delegation gestured with multiple arms. "Humans, your deadline expires in 5 hours. This is not the time for festivities." Torres stepped forward, his expression serious but somehow also amused. "Actually, it's exactly the time, because we're about to solve a problem that has troubled the galaxy for thousands of years." He activated a holographic display that showed detailed information about resource shortages affecting hegemony worlds. The data was precise, current, and classified at the highest levels of alien government. The energy being in the mechanical suit crackled with alarm. "How did you obtain this intelligence?" "We didn't steal it," Dr. Vasquez explained. "The architect technology can scan quantum information patterns across interstellar distances. We've been analyzing problems throughout hegemony space for the past 18 hours. Zenthka's form brightened dangerously. You have been spying on us. We've been studying you, Torres corrected. There's a difference. We wanted to understand why the hegemony is so afraid of change that they would threaten to destroy an entire species rather than let them grow. The display showed more data: energy crises on industrial worlds, agricultural failures on farming planets, mining operations that were depleting faster than new sources could be found. The hegemony was facing resource problems that threatened their stability. Your civilization is successful, Elena continued, but it's also static. You've achieved perfect order, but you've stopped growing. That means you can't adapt when new challenges arise. A reptilian being that looked like a walking dinosaur spoke for the first time. These problems have existed for centuries. Our best scientists work constantly to find solutions. There are no easy answers. Torres smiled. You're right. There are no easy answers using conventional thinking. But humans don't think conventionally. He gestured, and the 7 architect-modified ships began to move in perfect synchronization. Their quantum cores resonated at frequencies that created ripples in space itself. But instead of preparing for battle, they were doing something unprecedented. They were manufacturing matter from pure energy. The process was visible on every sensor in the system. The ship's quantum cores, working together, were literally creating new elements by manipulating the fundamental forces of reality. Rare minerals that took millions of years to form naturally were appearing in minutes. Impossible, breathed the insectoid being with compound eyes. Matter cannot be created from nothing. It can if you think about the problem differently, Elena explained. The architects taught us that energy and matter are more interchangeable than anyone realized. You just need the right quantum field configurations. Torres continued the demonstration. The ships began producing water, creating complex organic compounds, even generating atmospheres suitable for dozens of different species. All from raw energy drawn from the quantum foam of space itself. This technology could solve every resource shortage in the galaxy, President Martinez said quietly. No more wars over mining rights, no more agricultural crises, no more energy shortages, abundance for every civilization. The alien delegation stood in stunned silence as the implications sank in. This wasn't just advanced technology. It was the answer to problems that had plagued galactic civilization for millennia. Why are you showing us this? Zenthka asked, its crystalline voice softer than before. Because that's what humans do, Torres replied. When we find something good, we share it. When we solve a problem, we help others solve theirs too. The architects understood this about us. Admiral Morrison stepped forward. The hegemony has maintained order in the galaxy for 50,000 years. That's admirable. But order without growth becomes stagnation. We're offering partnership, not conquest. Dr. Vasquez activated another display showing the human crews from all 7 ships. Every one of these people spent time with the architects in another universe. They learned not just about technology, but about the importance of diversity, growth, and cooperation between different ways of thinking. Most species become predictable as they advance, Torres continued. They follow rules, stick to patterns, avoid risks, but the galaxy needs problem solvers who can think outside established frameworks. It needs species that are still growing, still changing, still discovering new possibilities. The demonstration continued for another hour. The human ships worked together to create a miniature space station, complete with life support systems suitable for any known species. They produced exotic materials that could revolutionize manufacturing throughout the galaxy. They even opened temporary gateways to other dimensions, showing pathways to resources that existed beyond conventional space. But the most impressive part wasn't the technology itself. It was the way the human crews worked together, improvising solutions, adapting their techniques in real time, solving problems that arose during the demonstration with creativity that left the alien observers speechless. The architects were right, Zenthka said finally. You are different. Different enough to be partners instead of subjects? Martinez asked. The crystalline being's form pulsed with patterns of light that Elena had learned indicated deep thought. The Hegemony Council will need to convene. This changes everything. Over the following weeks, the galaxy transformed in ways no one had expected. Instead of war or subjugation, humanity found itself at the center of the largest cooperative effort in galactic history. The Terra Institute for Multiversal Studies became a meeting place for scientists from hundreds of worlds, all working together to understand and apply architect principles. Captain Torres led the first joint human-alien expedition to another universe, solving a crisis that had threatened 3 different star systems. Dr. Vasquez established research teams that included beings from species that had been enemies for centuries, united by their shared fascination with impossible discoveries.